Living Power with Dan Hurst.
The second characteristic is that there is a delight in researching and reporting as many facts as possible on a particular subject. Now this is also a misuse because the teacher will just overbear or will just throw all kinds of validation over and over and over and over again until at that point you're just kind of going, oh, would you please shut up and move on? You know, and a teacher will do this sometimes. They'll just, there's so many facts on the subject, but a teacher loves that. The teacher loves to validate truth and then corroborate it over and over and over again. The third characteristic is there's a desire to present truth in a systematic sequence. In other words, a teacher has to have an order to the way they teach. They don't just start blowing stuff out. They have a systematic approach to the way that they teach. Now, in this previous passage that we saw here in Luke, which I think is still on the screen, Luke 1 verses 1 through 4, verse 3 is very, very true to this particular characteristic of a desire to present truth in a systematic sequence. And Luke says that, therefore, since I myself have carefully investigated everything from the beginning, it seemed good to write an orderly account for you. Luke says, I want to do this in an orderly way. And so he does that. And then I want you to notice his attention to details. In Luke chapter 4, starting with verse 38, pick up on the detail, the minutia that Luke, this is just the way a teacher thinks. Starting with verse 38, Jesus is talking, or Luke is explaining something. Now this is how he explains it. Jesus left the synagogue and went to the home of Simon. Now Simon's mother-in-law was suffering from a high fever, and they asked Jesus to help her. So he bent over her and rebuked the fever, and it left her. She got up at once and began to wait on them. Now another disciple would have just said, or another writer would have just said, so he healed her. But Luke notices little minutiae, little details. He bent over her and he rebuked the fever and it left her. And she got up at once and began to wait on them. See the detail? Luke notices stuff like this. Verse 40, when the sun was setting, the people brought to Jesus all who had various kinds of sickness, and laying his hands on each one, he healed them. Moreover, demons came out of many people, shouting, you are the Son of God. But he rebuked them and would not allow them to speak, because they knew he was the Christ. Now, it doesn't mean that he was preventing them from forbidding them to speak because he was the Christ. What it's saying is because of his authority, they knew who he was. And so they were silenced. In other words, they were put under the control of the power of God. Verse 42, at daybreak, so apparently this is where we figure out this went on all night long. Apparently, or at least most of the night. At daybreak, Jesus went out to a solitary place. The people were looking for him, and when they came to where he was, they tried to keep him from leaving them. Can you see the detail? And Luke saw all of this. He saw the way it was happening, and you get this vivid picture of really what was going on. So there is this desire to present truth in a systematic sequence.